When Margaret got word from the doctors that the treatments were no longer going to make an effect on her body kind of shut down and she went to bed. She began to think about her life, and I was there that day, and I spent quite a while with her. She asked me to come beside her in her big king-size bed and take her hand and talk a bit about her life. I will never forget that time I spent with Margaret. No makeup, no lipstick. She looked absolutely beautiful to me. But the next morning, she had wanted George to come, and the next morning, George and I arrive at her door, and her granddaughter opens the door and welcomes us in, and she says, "Oh, are you George?" And my husband goes, "Yes." She goes, "Oh, you have to stay there. My grandma's given me strict orders to put on her lipstick before you come up." It was okay I didn't see her with it, but I think she really liked George better than me. But Margaret loved driving in her Lexus. She loved it. She got it from her daughter-in-law's father, and often she would want me to chauffeur her around, never in my car, always in hers. And she'd talk about these wonderful Cadillacs she got from Mary Kay, especially her pink cars. She loved them. Me, I just drive in anything. A reasonable car was never an option what color. The best price we bought. Margaret loves having her radio on. When we stayed there and we were getting our condo renovated and Margaret opened her doors to us and we ended up staying there for several weeks, I'd realized her radio was on, I think, before she woke up. And it was on all the time until she went downstairs and put on her other radio so she could listen to it. And she only turned it off so she could turn on the TV, so she could watch the TV. Every single program was a Christian program. Margaret never watched anything else or listened to anything else. Me, not so much. The only radio I have is in the car. I rarely put it on, and I'm not really fond of having the TV playing all the time. Margaret loved her dark, she'd tell me, healthy chocolate. She loved it so much, she started a business. So I'm sure with all of you out there, you've bought this healthy chocolate. Unfortunately, Margaret never won me over. Look, I like the unhealthy, creamy, milky chocolate, but we remained friends. I love camping. We lived years in Australia, and I just love to go out camping. My dear Margaret, I think her favorite experience of outdoor camping is on the balcony of a 5-star hotel. But the more I got to know Margaret, more than 8 years ago, my husband and I moved from Waterloo and we came down into Oakville. We had known the Johnston family, for Randy many years ago came to Teen Ranch, his hockey skills, and he developed them there at the ranch. Many of the girls came and worked there, and so I knew the Johnston family. But as I moved down and my husband and I were at Chartwell Baptist Church, I got to know her very well. And in that time, Margaret became more like a mother to me. She loved to tell me how I should dress and what colors look best on me, and they look much better if I wore bright red lipstick with it, which I never owned, so I couldn't do. But she'd tell me what was healthy to eat. She'd tell me, don't drink, and you've probably heard this, don't drink really hot water, don't drink really cold, it's not good for your body. You have to have it at room temperature. I learned all sorts of things, and I grew to love her like a mom. I listened to her because she was wise. I even, when I stayed there, changed a couple of times because she told me it wasn't really appropriate what I was wearing. And I appreciated it very, very much. But as we became friends, I realized we're both very spontaneous people. Margaret loved to go places, right, as you all know, whether it was shopping, special luncheons, we'd go afternoon coffee in her favorite cafe. We entertained widows in her home. We'd pop in at PCP for a visit. And even one time driving past the ranch, we popped in to see Mel Stevens. She was delighted. Although I frustrated her to no end because we both were spontaneous, but my schedule was never as flexible as Margaret's. And she'd say, you're too busy. Stop going out and helping so many people. Stop working so hard. because she wanted to spend more time. I really loved and enjoyed. Both Margaret Johnston's family and the Tompkins have a revolving door, and her and I would have tons of fun talking about many internationals who would stay in our homes, but we'd talk about the people that would come for a couple of days and stay for weeks, or the people who would come for a couple of weeks and stay for months. And we'd always have lots of fun. I loved her sense of humor. Although I think she's smiling down now and going, ha ha, I got you to speak after Rave. That's not so funny. But her and I loved reading books, loved articles, loved books, loved novels, and especially if they were a true story. We both loved opportunities to learn and grow. So it wasn't a surprise to me when I came down after being a chaplain at the Coping Center and working with bereaved people that I started a new group for newly recent widows. And Margaret came to me. It had been 10 years since her husband had died. And she said, can I join your group? And I've taken a lot of bereavement training, and you don't usually put longtime widows in with recent widows. But you know, Margaret has a way of winning your heart, and she joined our group. And our group, we had 8 weeks of support, and Margaret sat there every week. I can still see her sitting there soaking in all she could. And at the end of the 8 weeks, we give out little stained glass hearts with a crack in the middle saying, even though our heart is wounded, God can keep it together. And she wore that like a badge of honor. And she'd tell everyone, you can just imagine, she'd love to tell anyone who would listen how important it is for you to get bereavement support no matter how long it had been since you had lost your loved one. She was an incredible woman. We found out as we got to know each other real well that we both shared a lifelong childhood friend. And Margaret's was Doreen, and she's sitting up the back, and Margaret absolutely loved you, Doreen, for Doreen was the one that took her to church. She was the one that introduced Margaret to God, and Margaret would always tell me how much she treasured her. Well, she loved her so much, she always wanted to go and visit her. So I would be the chauffeur, and up we'd go. It wouldn't matter if it was Guelph or Kitchener to the hospital or way up north near Midland. We would always have a lot of fun, and she'd tell me of all her stories of her childhood. It was great fun. But perhaps for Margaret and I, our greatest bond of friendship was our faith. We both came into faith as young girls. We deeply fell in love with God. We had a passion to get to know Him better, and you've heard this from all our grandchildren, her passion to be in the Word, to pray, and then to share her faith. I thought I enjoyed sharing my faith, but Margaret was me on steroids. She would tell anyone and everyone, whether you lived next door or down the street or even around the corner, whether it was at a restaurant, in a doctor's office, whether it was in the mall, just walking down the street. And if she didn't have a tract to give you in your language, she'd call Mary Chester at the Christian bookstore and order something in your language, so next time she met, she would have something you could read easily. Margaret loved to share her faith. I was thinking about her, and I can't even imagine Margaret's surprise in heaven, seeing all those people that she had shared her faith, because Margaret dared to be a Daniel. She dared to stand alone, dared to have a purpose firm, and dared to make it known. Yes, Margaret never hesitated to share her faith. When she first got the news, and I was lying there beside her, holding her hand, and her voice changed. She was whispering. She was quiet. The reality of all that happened had hit her. And she said to me, all I wanted to ever do, Heather, is show my family, my children, my grandchildren, my friends, what it meant to live for Jesus, to know Him, to love Him. That was her whole heart's desire. And she said, right now, my greatest desire is I show them how to die. I wanted to show them how to live. Now it's time for me to show them how to die. Well done, Margaret. You showed your family how to live. Absolutely. You've showed them how to die. And Margaret, as your grandchildren have said, and your children will come up to say, the absence of your presence will be felt deeply by all of us. But we rejoice with all of you. Can't you just see her in heaven now? And God says, Margaret, you're here. You know what? She told me when Bert died, she's asked God 3 or 4 times if he would take her home. She said, Heather, God denied me entrance, and I have to stay here. But now she's home, and I can just see her. Randy had a picture of someone running into Jesus' arms, and I can just see her there, and the Lord looking at her and saying, Margaret, well done, my good, enthusiastic, passionate follower. May we be brave and bold, like Margaret, sharing the greatest good news the world could ever hear, and follow in her larger-than-life footprints. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. And now I'd like to invite up my wife, Carolyn, my sister-in-law, Sky, my brother-in-law, Randy, my sister-in-law, Judy, my sister-in-law, Janice, the children of Margaret, for a few words.
Margaret Helen Walker Loughran Johnston, my mother. Margaret was always learning in every sphere of knowledge and wisdom, and she took us on this journey. Winston said that she didn't really conquer the iPhone, but you know, she did learn how to talk with Google. And hey, Google. Hey, Google.